Hello guys, welcome to the fiction series. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto got harem with Verosika, Loona and Stella. Part 2. If you want more awesome fan fiction like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, so without wasting any time, let's get into the video. Stella withheld a look of contempt at the reptilian imp before her. She knew this man only by reputation and hearsay, but whatever negative she heard could, reluctantly, be overlooked by the reviews she also heard about him. So, what can I do for you, Gosha? She heard him practically hiss out, particularly when stating her family name. Information, she stated curtly. I'm sure you felt that pulse of power a few nights ago, yes? Hard not to. From what I heard, it reached nearly the entirety of the Pride Ring. Why? Interested in the source? You and every big wig in this ring. Dear, she smirked. Perhaps, but I have more of an idea about who caused the pulse. I just need you to confirm it for me and give me anything you can find on them. Yeah? And how much am I being offered for such a job? Stella rolled her eyes at this. She had dealt with demons who were focused solely on the money they could extort for a job. They had certain tells or signs. But this demon, this striker, he pretended to be like that. Just as she was suppressing her disdain for him, he was doing the same thing. He lived up to the name of the uppermost ring, a demon who is ruled by his pride. He wanted to prove his so-called superiority over the more powerful or richer demons of hell. That didn't mean he wasn't going to not try extorting her for his services, so she silently called over the imp standing next to her, watching Striker's reaction to the suitcase containing what she was willing to pay. That is my offer. Take it or leave it, she firmly stated. The hastily hidden look of insult on his face almost made her smirk, but she was determined to ascertain the identity of whoever created that energy wave. So, she needed to remain calm. Scoffing, Striker leaned back in his seat and readjusted the strand of weed he had hanging out of his mouth. What can you tell me about them? Whoever the individual is, they are either an angel hiding here in hell, or they are a human that is very far from home. That's more than anyone else who hired you can tell you. He fraught a sneer at her comment. You snubbed on what you're paying me because you knew other people hired me. She allowed herself to smirk once more. That was part of it. The other. She gracefully stood up from her chair and turned around to leave. Information isn't free. I'll expect a report on your progress within the week. Striker fought his desire to attack the smug bitch who confidently had her back to him. He wanted nothing more than to tear into her with his bare hands and bathe himself in her so-called noble blood. But he restrained himself and walked off. He had a job to do and multiple clients wanting him to see it done. There could be another opportunity to kill the woman. Dressed in only her underwear and a bra in her room, Octavia huffed in annoyance as she plucked another feather from her thigh. She gave it a narrowed look before tossing it on top of a small pile on the floor. Stupid stress molting, she grumbled, remembering her father telling her about it when she was younger. Avian demons and birds in general will find their feathers molting if they're overly stressed. And given that her parents' fighting had escalated and that odd pulse of crazy energy washing over her, it was only a matter of time before she molted from the stress. It's rather aggravating, isn't it? She heard her mother ask from the door, and Octavia turned to see her giving a faint smile. Molting outside of your natural time? She emphasized her query by shaking her head, throwing off some of her own loosened feathers from stress. Octavia was slightly surprised, not realizing how stressed her mother was. Yeah, definitely not a fan, the younger Gosha said, stressing the word as she pulled out another feather before putting her clothes back on. You were gone for a bit. Business. In a way. It was a personal matter that I attended to by hiring someone, Stella answered, walking off to her room while Octavia followed. I wanted to look into the energy wave from before and hired someone to investigate the source. You know who it is? Nothing concrete as of yet, but I have some ideas, hence the investigation. Octavia hummed thoughtfully at that, pulling out her phone. Maybe someone posted something on social media about it. Possibly, Stella acknowledged, not too familiar with social media, but knowing Octavia had made a good suggestion. They entered Stella's room, with her having moved out of the main bedroom after Stola's affair on their bed. However, her room had some packed bags and suitcases, while another, which was partially filled, rested on her bed. Something Octavia noticed with a sad frown. Mom? She began in a low voice. While folding a coat and placing it in the bag, Stella replied, yes, dear. You and Dad aren't staying together, are you? Pausing in her packing, Stella turned to her daughter and saw her averted gaze while awkwardly rubbing her arm. The woman sighed softly and pushed aside the bag so that she could sit on her bed and offer Octavia a spot next to her. When Octavia took the offered seat, Stella answered, no, we're not. Your father and I are getting a divorce. But why? Is it because he cheated? Octavia asked, needing to understand her mother's decision. That was the final straw, to be clear, but it was not the main reason, she confessed. The truth, Octavia, is that your father and I never wished to be married in the first place. What? The younger Gosha asked in surprise. But then, why are you? It was an arranged union with the hope of producing an heir to the Gosha, Stella informed her daughter. A political marriage that had been decided by our parents. Realization hit Octavia like a ton of bricks. Me. Nodding, Stella clarified, as our daughter, you are a potential heir to the Gosha. That's all our marriage was, a duty to be fulfilled and assigned to us by Elder Gosha, hoping to gain more power. The horrible feeling started to build inside her, and she shakily asked, so then, am I? She never got to finish, though, for Stella had cupped her cheek and gently made Octavia face her. Octavia, don't you dare finish that thought. You may have been born out of duty, but that does not mean that we don't love you. She smiled and caressed her daughter's cheek in hopes of comforting her. You are our child, our daughter, our beautiful little starlight. Never doubt that for a moment, sweetheart. Her eyes grew misty as she finished, understand. With tears rolling down, Octavia flung herself into her mother's arms and sobbed into her chest as Stella comforted her child with a loving embrace as her own tear fell. She felt Octavia nodding her head and smiled as she let her vent. Afterwards, she would help Octavia preen the rest of her feathers. Back up top, Tsunade was currently looking over reports of a C-rank mission that had been completed by Team 8. It was a scouting mission along the borders between the Land of Fire and the Land of Rice, considering how the hidden sound had secretly been made within that country before the Chunin exams over a year ago. Nothing unusual, The Hokage asked after skimming the report, planning to look at it thoroughly after hearing from her subordinates. Nothing out of the ordinary, Lady Hokage, Kurenai answered. We couldn't get anything further without crossing the border, but we saw nothing noteworthy from our vantage points along the border. Well, no news could be good news, good work, regardless. Your pay will be placed in your accounts in the next couple of days. Dismissed. The mate bowed to the woman, yet all but a certain young woman departed. Lady Hokage. Looking up from the report, Tsunade replied, something on your mind, Hinata. I was hoping to hear if you had any news on Naruto-kun. Jiraiya hasn't reported recently. With him and Naruto needing to be on the move so much, it doesn't leave much time to send messages. I see. The sudden poof of smoke interrupted them from speaking further, and it was revealed to be 3 new occupants in Tsunade's office. Lady Shima. Lord Fukasaku, the last Senju greeted respectfully, earning greeting nods from the Toad elders. It's been quite some time since I last saw you both. I hope you're well. Well enough, given our age, Tsunade-chan, Shima replied with some amusement. You still look so lovely. Thank you. May I ask why you're both here with Jiraiya? Where's Naruto? She then remembered the other occupant and quickly ordered, Hinata, you're dismissed. This conversation doesn't concern you. But Lady Hokage. Hinata tried to argue, but a firm look from the woman silenced her. With a reluctant nod, she bowed and departed. Please send in Shizune before you leave, Tsunade added, waiting for her assistant and first apprentice to enter the office before calling out, Anbu, leave us. 4 blurs shot from different hiding places, gave their leader a bow in respect, and vanished. This allowed Tsunade to seal up the office from prying eyes and ears. Now Jiraiya, where's Naruto? Looking incredibly uncomfortable, the Toad Sannin muttered, I don't know. You don't know? Repeated the slug Sannin with narrowed eyes, while Shizune looked concerned for the missing Uzumaki. How could you not know? Weren't you supposed to be looking after him? How could you lose him? She was getting more worried with each inquiry about the young man who had helped her move past her emotional pain and inspired her to return to the Hidden Leaf. Her younger, distant cousin had quickly become someone she was both fond of and fiercely protective of. It didn't take long for Naruto to cement himself into her heart as someone important to her. Fukasaku waved her down to placate her worries. Easy, Tsunade-chan. Naruto boy is fine. The reason I had Jiraiya boy bring myself and Ma here was to tell you what has happened recently involving Naruto boy. Tsunade gave her old teammate a dangerous look before leaning back in her seat and motioning everyone else to sit. She had a feeling this talk would take some time. Go on, then. To be blunt, Fukasaku began, Naruto boy is in hell. What? 3 different voices cried out, the suspects being Tsunade, Shizune, and Jiraiya, who had not been told what happened and was ordered to bring Ma and Pot-O to the Hokage. Hearing that his apprentice was in hell of all places was both shocking and unbelievable. Not to mention, it should be impossible. Lord Fukasaku, please explain why is Naruto in hell? Shizune asked anxiously, fear for Naruto's safety overwhelming her. Like Tsunade, Shizune came to see Naruto as someone she had bonded deeply with. If someone asked her to define what she felt for the young man, she would proudly say that Naruto was like the little brother she never had but always wanted. He was a person with incredible warmth and compassion for others that she wholeheartedly believed would become worthwhile. Ah sighed and explained, Naruto boy left for hell willingly, tagging along with some inhabitants that he had met one evening at a port town he and Jiraiya boy were staying at. And you let him leave? Jiraiya asked in shock. What in the name of the sage made you do that? Don't raise your voice at us, boy. Ma scolded firmly. You don't understand what Naruto-chan was feeling before Pa spoke with him. The boy was about to cancel the contract he made with the Toads. He what? The man gasped out, flabbergasted at the news. Why would he? I answered, he's had enough, Jiraiya. Enough of the secrets, of the mistreatment, of the unrealistic expectations. Do you have any idea what he's been through, living as a Jinchuriki in this village? I know it was hard, but Minato. That boy's faith in the village does not excuse what they did to his son, and you know it. Ma cut off. Honestly, sometimes I wonder what was going on in his head to make his son the newest Jinchuriki after the mayhem the QP caused. Lord Minato was Naruto's father? Shizune asked in shock. The boy's parents are Minato and Kushina, Pa explained. Kushina was the previous Jinchuriki, but somehow the fox escaped her seal. Considering how she and Minato were both masters of Genjutsu, it stands to reason that someone interfered with the seal during Naruto boy's birth. I've looked into how pregnancy affects a female Jinchuriki, Tsunade began, though there are very few cases on the subject in the history of Jinchuriki. Apparently, the body's need to develop the child takes away from maintaining the seal used to restrain the Biju. Inoichi who are pregnant suffer bouts of chakra drain and loss of control, since their chakra is also part of the development of the fetus. If that's true, Lady Tsunade, then that supports the notion of outside interference in stabilizing the seal, Shizune commented with a frown. But who could have known about the pregnancy and interfered? Something for us to look into, Tsunade planned before getting back on track. Naruto must have found out about his parents, then. Am I right? Nodding, Pa replied, Naruto and I spoke at length after I found out he planned to cancel his contract with the Toads. On his last night here before going to hell, Naruto boy spoke with the demons that were performing a concert of sorts on the beach. The leader of the group offered him a job and asked him to think about it after they spoke about more personal topics that I won't divulge. What sort of demon, Pa? Jiraiya asked suspiciously. A succubus demon. And before you say anything, he cut off before anyone could speak up. The boy was of sound mind and under no influence whatsoever when he left. She did not charm him or cast some sort of spell on him, so relax. Tsunade and Shizune looked relieved while Jiraiya asked what was the job and how long is he going to be employed by the demon. Security, bodyguarding, and being an assistant were the jobs he agreed to. As for how long? I cannot say, but Ma and I have promised to continue his training. Training that you, Jiraiya-chan, have wasted, Ma accused. Honestly, you wasted an entire year on the basics. Either you are spending more time on your damnable peeping, or Naruto-chan was incredibly underdeveloped as a ninja. Jiraiya Tsunade ground out. Why did you waste so much time for a whole year? And don't you dare say that the whole year was needed. The truth. Now. Well, you see Kakashi didn't. The man tried to shift blame, but was silenced when Tsunade slammed her fist on her desk, cracking the furniture in two with a perfect split down the middle. I focused more on my research, he reluctantly admitted. But it wasn't all the time. I also spoke with members of my spy network and looked into leads on either Orochimaru or the Akatsuki. Honest. I don't give a damn about that. What I do give a damn about is you squandering time with Naruto, your godson, and the son of your revered apprentice. You had the perfect opportunity to establish a real bond with him, you damned idiot. And what do? The same old habits of throwing concepts at him and ditching him. I know you, Jiraiya. I know that's how you trained Minato, and you were banking on a repeat success with Naruto. That's not true. Oh? Tell me then exactly how you taught Naruto the Rasengan. Or how to summon the Toads. Go on. I'm listening, Tsunade challenged with a fierce glare. He attempted to explain before stopping, forcing himself to look back on how he had taught his godson how to perform two of the three jutsu that linked the young man to his deceased father. He recalled having Naruto sign the scroll and going over the basics of the summoning jutsu, only for Naruto to struggle. He recalled never once giving Naruto advice, save for exhausting all of his chakra for the sole purpose of calling upon the chakra of the QP. And then casually shoving Naruto into a chasm he could have died in if he hadn't gotten lucky with the fox in question. I didn't. He then recalled how he taught Naruto the Rasengan, which was being generous, even in his recollecting eye. All he showed was a single demonstration of each step, as well as the differences between a two-step and three-step Rasengan. Naruto was forced to develop a workaround because of his negligent teaching style. I saw him as another Minato, he finally confessed, his voice low with self-shame, ignoring the fact that they grew up differently. Minato had quality training with higher standards and had an intellect and instinct that few could match. He needed minimal guidance, only requiring basic knowledge that he deciphered on his own. Tsunade, while still upset for Naruto's sake, couldn't help softening her glare at seeing her old friend looking so broken. Whereas Naruto grew up in a hostile environment and struggled just to understand basics because nobody bothered to teach him even that. I understand why you needed time to teach him those basics, Jiraiya, but you have to realize what your negligence as his master cost. He must have felt like you wrote him off, viewing him as lesser than the vices you preach about resisting, but always fall prey to. I know, Tsunade, I know. She decided to let him reflect and turn back to the Toad Elders. What exactly do you plan on training Naruto in? I intend to introduce him to other toads who can cinch with him for different forms of combat, but Gamakichi will be his main partner as he'll grow alongside Naruto boy, Pa explained. I'll need a piece of that chakra paper you use to determine affinities, so that I may find toads that match or complement his affinity. Shizune, start a list. We'll need to add a few things for Lord Fukasaku and Lady Shima to take while instructing Naruto. Yes, ma'am, Shizune replied, fetching a paper and pen before taking notes. Perhaps a weapon for the boy as well, Shima suggested to her husband, who hummed at the idea. We'd request practice weapons for a sword, a polearm, and a more blunted weapon. Maybe even a shield like Gamaken uses. Also, if you could give us a detailed copy of the Shadow Clone Scroll, Fukasaku added. From what I can tell, there may be some more potential with that jutsu that Naruto boy hasn't discovered yet. Tsunade watched Shizune note everything down. Anything else? Give him this, Jiraiya suddenly spoke up, pulling out a notebook stuffed with extra pages and notes. He's in Uzumaki and the son of two legendary experts of Kenjutsu. He deserves to know their best skill. Fukasaku took the notebook, giving his old student a nod showing the man he was doing a good thing. He was angry with how Jiraiya had handled Naruto's growth as a ninja and as a person, but he didn't hate the man. He just wanted him to acknowledge his shortcomings and be better. Shima felt the same, and she gave Jiraiya a faint smile at the man's contribution to Naruto's future training. She knew that the relationship between the two men would never return to what it was, but she hoped that they would eventually at least be professional with one another. An idea struck her, and she added, if possible, Tsunade-chan, could you give us a few things about Naruto-chan's mother? I'm sure he'd appreciate learning about her. Tsunade smiled at the idea. I'll see what I can find. In the meantime, I'll have Shizune gather the requested items, along with a few jutsu of my suggestion that Naruto should find use for. Very good. We'll return in a couple days to collect whatever you can offer, Fukasaku bid before he and his wife left in plumes of smoke. Jiraiya sighed at their departure. I really screwed up this time, didn't I? Tsunade sent Shizune off with a small nod of thanks, before pulling out some sake and pouring out 2 servings. Handing one to Jiraiya, she replied, I won't lie and say you didn't. I trusted you with Naruto's well-being, and he trusted you with his development. You fucked up, pure and simple. I know that at least, now I do. Taking a drink, he morbidly joked, Minato and Kushina will probably kill me twice over when I finally kick the bucket. And I will sit back and watch it happen. So, what happens now? Keep tabs on the Akatsuki and Orochimaru, like you were claiming to be doing before. However, I want you to be more focused about it. I know you won't quit cold turkey about your habits, but I expect you to take this more seriously. I want updates bi-weekly, if not monthly. Understand? Nodding, the Toad Sage handed her the empty dish and stood up, readjusting the scroll strapped behind him. I'll head out immediately, head to Rice Country and get what I can on Orochimaru first. Jiraiya, Tsunade spoke up just as the man prepared to depart via the window. If an opportunity arises where you can take him out with minimal risk, I want you to consider taking it. He was silent for a moment before responding. That kind of chance isn't something you should bet on, but I'll keep an eye out. As he left, she whispered to herself, I promise to stake my life on Naruto, Jiraiya. So, I'll bet on any gamble that takes out people after him. Charlie Morningstar, Princess of Hell and proprietor of the Happy Hotel located in the Pride Ring, sighed somberly as she sat on her room's balcony. Many thoughts plagued her mind at the moment, with 3 of them taking prominence. The least prominent was the fact that a party for her was approaching soon. It was a celebration of her 2nd century of life, her 200th birthday. She didn't want to have a big celebration, but her parents insisted otherwise. At least she could have Vaggie accompany her as her date for the occasion. The second thing on her mind was the odd pulse of energy that echoed across the Pride Ring a few evenings prior. She had never felt such an abundance of life energy like that. And to have it echo across an entire ring was astounding. Part of her wanted to look into it, but she was distracted by the biggest issue on her mind. The hotel, once a mansion owned by her parents for extended stays in the Pride Ring, Charlie had taken ownership of the building in hopes of retrofitting it into a rehabilitation clinic for demons in hell. Her goal? To promote redemption so that sinners could be welcomed into heaven. The reason? because she felt that people deserved a chance to atone for what they did in life, but that wasn't the main reason. In hell, there is a yearly event that is simply called the extermination. During this time, exorcists from heaven, armed with angelic weapons, are sent down to hell to assist in taking care of its overpopulation by eliminating any demon that is in plain sight. This was something Charlie found both saddening and loathsome. She felt sympathy and pity for the demons killed off, and she despised that it was a necessary thing to deal with the overpopulation issue. Thus, the Happy Hotel, where Charlie hoped to change things so that the extermination was no longer a threat to her home and her people. As princess, she felt she had an obligation to her home's denizens. Sure, her efforts were ridiculed and seen as a fantasy, but she truly believed it would be a success. She was also immensely grateful to her girlfriend, Baggy, kept her grounded. Charlie would admit to having flights of fancy and being overly optimistic at times, but Baggy made sure she stayed realistic when she would start veering off. She loved her for that. She's probably talking with mom right now, she mused to herself as she left her balcony and headed for where her mother, Lilith, was staying. They're probably talking about my party and the hotel. Approaching the room, she heard muffled voices through the door and politely knocked. When she heard her mother grant entry, she opened the door to the woman and her girlfriend sitting at a table with some papers between them. "Hello, dear," Lilith greeted warmly. "I was speaking with Vagatha about the upcoming bash. We were just going over the guest list. Right, do we really need to have such a big event, though?" Charlie asked with a slightly uncomfortable expression. "Han," Baggy spoke up with a smile, "think of it this way. All of those nobles and big wigs attending the party are potential people who may invest into the hotel. Silver linings, yeah." Honestly, Charlie hadn't considered that. With all of the ridicule she had received about the hotel, she never thought of speaking personally with other nobles about the venture. With luck, she may be able to change their minds about her idea and get them to offer their support. Excited about the prospect, Charlie rushed over and hugged her girlfriend while kissing her cheek. "Baggy, you are a genius. Did I ever tell you that? You could stand to mention it more," she fired back in amusement as the couple enjoyed the embrace shared. "My, how adorable you two look," Lilith commented, getting a blush from her daughter, while the girlfriend rolled her eyes and smiled back. "I take it you're no longer bothered about the party, dear." Charlie composed herself and replied, "I'd still rather not make a big deal about it, but I won't turn down an opportunity to help the hotel succeed." "Wonderful. We'll see you at the mansion. Feel free to look over the guest list," Lilith bid before using her own personal magic to return home. Charlie took the seat her mother previously occupied and took the guest list into her hand to review it. Skimming through the names of demon nobles and their family members, she noted that a few other guests invited were not nobles. Some were demons who had become successful in their own right and were able to score an invitation. And one of the names on that list was a certain popstar. Verosika watched with interest as her bodyguard and ninja boy readied themselves for a sparring match. It wasn't the first time they had done so, and each one was fun to witness for her. Vortex was a hellhound with a calm ferocity, keeping calm until striking with the fury of a wolf. Whereas Naruto was a tempestuous wind, going wild at the start and striking at all angles with the aid of those copies he creates almost endlessly. Of course, her mind immediately thought of other uses for his shadow clones, uses that got her a bit moist down there. Unaware of the thoughts of his current employer, Naruto cracked his knuckles and rolled his shoulders as he stepped into the makeshift sparring ring. "You sure you want to do this, Tex?" "Why not? I haven't had a good brawl in weeks," Tex said while finishing off a beer, before casually crushing the can between his palms and tossing it into the trash behind him. "You're an ass, you know that." Naruto replied with a chuckle at Tex's joke before sliding into a ready stance. "Guess I gotta remind you about the fights we had before." "Fight?" cried out Milky, one of Verosika's posse members. She was what people labeled as a short stack, a woman on the shorter side that had an impressive bust size, sometimes out of proportion with her height. She was also a big fan of Earth's Mortal Kombat series, and she couldn't help yelling out the start of the spar, much to the amusement of her friends. As the spar commenced, Kiki noticed something different about her boss. "Hey, boss." "Yes, Kiki? Did you get a new conditioner for your hair? It looks amazing." Verosika smirked at the question. "Nope. It was actually thanks to Ninja Boy that my hair looks like this." What they were talking about was how Verosika's hair looked fuller and more vibrant, as if it had been injected with life. It added a level of beauty to her natural look that made it hard to decide if she was sexy or gorgeous, both being different measures of beauty. Coco ran some fingers through Verosika's hair, looking amazed at how soft it felt. "Fuck, what did he do? And can it be repeated?" Ace asked as he sat in Josh's lap. The two in QB were rather close, just as Coco and Apple were also close. "It takes effort to make my hair this good." "Is that what you call it?" Apple teased as she laid her head on Coco's shoulder, giggling when Ace simply flipped her off. Verosika watched as Naruto slid beneath a lunge. Tex tried, using his hands to spring himself up and kick the hellhound in the chest. The blow knocked him upward, where a clone was waiting with a heel drop that Tex managed to block by turning his body so he could absorb the impact with his forearm. As the spar went on, she answered, "It has something to do with Ninja Boy's chakra. He was using it to clear out any knots in my hair as he brushed it with his fingers. He didn't use anything else but his fingers and his chakra." "Nothing else? Not even a comb?" Kat asked curiously. Normally, he wouldn't care too much about hair maintenance, considering he had a messy hairstyle that looked like bedhead. But he was intrigued by the human his boss invited into their group. It was amazing how well Naruto got along with the group. He had a certain charm to him that let him make friends with nearly anyone he met, and he was incredibly open-minded about things. When he saw that the posse had 2 homosexual couples within it, he didn't bat an eye and expressed a hope to meet someone he could care for in the future. That earnest desire for companionship made the posse chuckle, each of them already seeing their boss's interest in him. Ever since his first night staying with them, they noticed how comfortable Verosika was with the young man and how she looked lighter than before. As if his presence took away the things weighing down on her. Just his fingers. Although, when his chakra sank into my skin, Verosika moaned for a moment and shuddered. "Fuck, I almost came by how it felt safe to say, Ninja Boy's gonna make a girl very happy if his chakra can do that to them." A smirk formed on her face as she added, "He's not a bad kisser, either, even if he's inexperienced." Kiki smirked back and nudged her boss. "Staking your claim already?" "Maybe. Who knows?" Verosika answered lightly, though the posse saw her gaze stay with Naruto as he caught a punch with his hand, only to have his own caught by Tex. The two kept a deadlock, grinning at each other as they tried to push the other back. In cinch, they reared their heads back and slammed foreheads without a second thought, ignoring the pain they felt from the matching headbutts. They pushed against each other, blue eyes defiantly staring at white within crimson ones. "You're stupidly strong, kid," the hellhound ground out, not gaining nor giving ground to the human before him. "So are you, Tex," Naruto replied, though his grin grew more devious as his gaze flicked over Tex's shoulder for an instant. "But I won." Vortex was about to respond, but he felt arms encircle him from beneath his pits, forcing him into a full Nelson hold. He growled and snarled as he tried to break the hold, but the damn kid held strong and managed to kick the back of one of his knees, forcing him into a tight spot. While his clone held down the hellhound, Naruto regained his breath and prepared to end the spar, but he couldn't help sweat dropping when he heard Milky call out, "Finish him." Vortex, despite his unfavorable position, gained a tick mark as he barked out, "Damn it, woman. This isn't a video game." Verosika and her posse busted out laughing at his response, while Naruto held back his own laugh and dispelled his clone, freeing Vortex as he helped the hellhound to his feet. "Good fight, dude," Naruto bid with a small grin. "If I didn't use my clones, you would have had me easily." "True, but don't handicap yourself, kid. It's a stupid notion that based around honor or some other bullshit. In a real fight, honor means shit. It's all about either surviving or taking your opponent out. Get it? Got it? Good. Next time, I won't go down so easy," Tex challenged with a fanged grin. Smirking back, the Uzumaki replied, "Any time, Wolfman." The two shared a knuckle bump before Naruto was surprised by Verosika draping herself over his shoulders from behind, her head beside his. "Not bad, Ninja Boy," she complimented. "You've improved from your first match with Tex, here." Naruto cringed at the reminder. It wasn't a spar but a one-sided embarrassment. His movements were so predictable that he practically ran into Vortex's waiting fists. It really drove home how bad his so-called fighting style was and how reliant he was on mobbing people with his clones. "Thanks," he replied, turning so that he looked her in the eye. "Anything on your schedule today?" "Actually, yes." She grinned with a gleam in her eye as she held up a fancy-looking envelope. "Turns out yours truly has been invited to a party celebrating the 200th birthday of Hell's Princess. You mentioned royalty before. There's also a king." "Yep. Noble families have their own territories, but they all answer to the big man himself, Lucifer Morningstar. He was the original devil of this place, and he was once a servant of the biblical god before betraying him and falling to hell. His wife, Lilith, could be called the first succubus." That's interesting," he mused. "What about their daughter?" "Not much I can say about her, honestly. Her name's Charlie and she was on the news recently about some hotel she's opening here in the Pride Ring. All I know is that she was ridiculed for it, but I didn't pay attention since we left during the broadcast. It was for that concert we met at." "Ah. Well, maybe you can meet her at the party, seeing as you were invited and all." "Oh? And what makes you think I'm going alone? I can't go anywhere without my amazing bodyguard and my ninja boy." "Wait, we're tagging along?" the blonde Uzumaki asked in shock, while Vortex gave Verosika a knowing smirk that she winked at. "Clever, boss." Invite him along under the guise of protecting you, but in reality, taking him as your escort," mused the Hellhound. "You've really become interested in him, haven't you? So, because you and Tex will be coming with me, we all need new threads for the big bash. Which means we have some work to do." Naruto went pale with dread at what she was implying. "Oh, fuck me." Without missing a beat, the succubus woman replied, "Maybe later, if you behave." Naruto could only sputter as his pale face turned neon red at the insinuation. "Anyway, it's time for some shopping. Let's go, sluts. We got a lot of work to do and little time to do it." Knowing what she was referring to, Naruto cried out, "Oi. My clothes are not that bad." "Keep telling yourself that, kid," Tex fired back in amusement. "Trust me, ninja boy," Verosika added with an alluring smirk. "By the time we're done fixing your wardrobe disaster," she teased, earning a pout from him that she found adorable, "you'll have bitches hanging off you in seconds." The thought of that had Naruto swallowing a lump in his throat. He wasn't sure how to feel about the notion of being what Kiba had referred to as a babe magnet. He wasn't one for unneeded attention. But, seeing the way Verosika looked so excited about the venture, he couldn't fight the faint smile on his face. Ever since the first night, when the two opened up to one another, he felt himself growing closer to the woman with each passing day. Not to mention what she was doing to help his own self-confidence. He still couldn't believe she allowed him to see her in nothing but a bathrobe this morning. He found himself awkwardly sitting on her couch after being called to her room. She was finishing up her morning shower and he couldn't help blushing as his traitorous mind conjured up possible images of how she'd look in there. "How are you finding hell, ninja boy?" she called from the bathroom. "Oh. It's definitely not what I was expecting. I thought it'd be all fire and brimstone, you know." "That's the common misconception," she replied with a laugh. "Each ring has its own society and standards. You'll see for yourself eventually." "Right, so is there any particular reason I'm in your room while you shower? I could always come back later. And miss seeing you squirm." "Not a chance, ninja boy." Figures, he sighed out, earning another laugh from her that he smiled at. He liked how it sounded in his ears and it was better than how it felt hearing and seeing her cry. He felt his heart twist at the memory. He broke from his thoughts when he saw her bathroom door open, producing a wave of steam that she stepped out of, dressed in nothing more than a bathrobe while her hair was wrapped in a towel. Blue eyes couldn't help being slightly mesmerized by how beautiful she looked with her skin glistening from water that had yet to fully dry. Unknown to him, Verosika noticed his stare and internally smiled. She loved to tempt and tease, it was her nature. But seeing a genuine appreciation for her beauty was flattering on a different level. She couldn't explain it, but part of her wasn't keen on using her typical succubus tricks on the whisker-faced human sitting on her couch. She wanted to win him over naturally. Moving over to a vanity mirror resting on a makeup desk, she unwrapped her hair and attempted to brush it, getting it caught a few times in some knots, much to her frustration. She was so focused on her hair that she jumped when she felt a hand gently grasp her wrist holding the brush. "Here," she heard Naruto speak. "Let me help. You mind lying back on your recliner over there?" Curious about his request and enjoying his shy tone, she complied and sat in her recliner and leaned it back so that her hair hung over the edge. She saw Naruto grab the stool she had at her vanity desk and seat himself behind her. "My chaperone has some techniques that involve his hair. I overheard him complain about maintaining it a few times and it got me thinking. If he uses chakra to reshape his hair, why not use it to style it?" She heard the strained tone in his voice when he referred to his so-called chaperone, but she didn't comment on it. She knew he must have been talking about the man who taught his father and was supposed to train him. So, she just relaxed and waited for him to try his chakra out on her hair. She trusted him not to ruin it, oddly enough. Something about Ninja Boy just made her trust in him so easily. Still, it caught her off guard when she felt a pleasant tingle from his fingers as they carefully ran through her locks, practically melting through the knots and smoothing her tresses with no effort. As for his chakra, she felt it move down her spine and through her body in a way that had her biting back a moan. She could tell he had no idea what he was doing to her, but his chakra was bringing her to a level of ecstasy that she was sorely tempted to take him, fuck the consequences, just like the first night when she made out with him after their Hirdo heart. I, she thought, fighting her instincts in favor of determining what she was feeling for the human driving her to climax with just his finger and chakra. I can't believe it. She was falling for him, falling for a human she met solely on happenstance and invited to hell on a whim. But she couldn't help herself. He was just so earnest and kind, and he wanted to help people despite the shitty life he lived and the people who consistently wrote him off. Not to mention that he was fun to tease, his blushing face being especially adorable to her. He had a heart of gold that he wore on his sleeve, and she wanted that heart, she wanted him. By the time Naruto finished with her hair, Verosika was barely able to hold back her orgasm. It was another thing in his favor, his chakra and how addicting it was to feel. She gave away nothing though as she got up and walked over to her mirror. Holy shit. She gasped out, running her hands through her hair that looked so much fuller and framed her face beautifully. I look fucking gorgeous. Feeling pleased with himself and how she reacted, Naruto unconsciously replied, yeah, you do. Oh? She looked over her shoulder, her pink iris staring into his deep blues. You really think so, ninja boy? Despite the teasing tone, Naruto nodded sincerely. Absolutely. I mean, you're already pretty, but you look amazing right now, you know. He rubbed the back of his head sheepishly as he complimented her, his eyes closed as he laughed awkwardly. Because of that, he didn't see how her cheeks lit up at his honest admiration. Damn you, ninja boy. You can't keep doing this to me. Anyway, Naruto spoke again, breaking her from her thoughts. Was there something else you wanted me for? I want to take you on that fucking couch and have you screaming my name as I give you the ride of your life, you damnable sweetheart. Her instincts raged in her mind, but she didn't give voice to them. I want you to spar with Tex again after we eat. I need to see if you've improved further from the previous one. Gotcha. I'll go get ready, then, he bid with a smile as he walked off. As soon as her door closed, Verosika shuddered and felt a wetness travel down her legs. I'm in trouble, she spoke softly, referring to her raging instincts as a succubus. She just hoped she could hold back before doing something that ruins what she has with her ninja boy. The evening of Charlie's party had come. Wearing a more regal version of her typical red tux, she was nervously standing at the door of the mansion and greeting guests after the staff had taken their coats and announced their arrival. Next to her, Baggy stood silently while dressed in a pretty dress that was colored the same shade of red. As much as she hated the idea of her being silenced, most noble demons didn't take kindly to being addressed by sinner demons. She turned slightly to give her an apologetic glance, but Baggy simply smiled in understanding. She smiled back before noting that Baggy's smile turned to a look of shock, prompting Charlie to turn around and match that shock when she saw the latest guests to arrive. Presenting Miss Verosika Mayday, the imp at the door informed the princess. Verosika was dressed in a single-strap black dress that had a dark orange scarf made of silk draped over her shoulders, a deliberate decision so that it matched the tie worn by a certain someone. And that someone was Naruto, who was looking around curiously well dressed in a black tux with a dark orange tie. He'd never worn anything like it before, and while it felt restricting compared to his normal clothes, he liked how it made him look more mature and how it matched Verosika's outfit. Tex wore a tux, but the sleeves were deliberately ripped at the shoulders, and he wore no tie. He was here as a bodyguard, not as a guest. Well, Verosika began with a smirk, a happy birthday to you, princess. 200 years old. Congrats. Charlie gave a polite smile and nodded. Thank you, Miss Mayday. And welcome to our home. Appreciated. Not every day a succubus like me gets to chat up the big wigs of hell. And who's your escort? Charlie asked curiously. Giving a polite bow, Naruto greeted, I'm Naruto Uzumaki, Charlie Harem. Harem? Oh, sorry. Forgot that the suffixes I use aren't common. It means princess. I was referring to you by your title. I never heard of that before. I'd love to hear more about the other suffixes, Naruto. Smiling, he replied, I'd be happy to talk about them and anything else, Harem. She giggled at that and let them move on before greeting the next guest. However, her thoughts lingered on the human that was now a guest in her family's mansion. Stella sighed in annoyance after excusing herself from another noble who was more interested in Stolas than her. With everything that's happened, one could forgive her for giving less than two shits about any possible ventures her soon-to-be ex might partake in. She was more concerned about how Octavia was faring. Her daughter didn't have much experience in large social gatherings like this, especially one centered on the high class. Taking a sip of the wine in her hand, she walked through the large room where most of the guests were socializing, keeping an eye out for her daughter. When she bumped into someone, she normally would have told them off. However, contact with them made her do something she had never done for anyone before, not even Stolas. Her tail feathers presented themselves, showing off their design as she turned to who she bumped into. To her shock, it was a human, one who looked roughly the same age as Octavia. He was blonde with cerulean blue eyes and odd birthmarks on his cheeks that took the style of whisker markings. He was at least dressed for the occasion and gave her an apologetic glance. Sorry about that, miss. I was looking at the decorations and wasn't looking where I was going. Are you alright? He asked in concern. He's the one, Stella thought in disbelief. The one who created that energy wave. If that's true, then that means. This. Are you alright? He repeated, shaking her from her thoughts as she lowered her tail feathers and hid her embarrassment. For fuck's sake, I can't believe I presented myself to him, she mentally berated herself before clearing her throat. I'm fine. May I ask what an elemental is doing here in hell, especially when he's still alive? 1. Elemental. Isn't it a creature based around elements? I'm human, miss. I can see that, but you misunderstand. An elemental refers to the part of Earth that you hail from. Tell me, you're from the elemental nations, yes? Yeah. How did you know? He asked back, surprised she knew. Your part of Earth has been separated from the rest of the planet since its founding. Nobody knows why, but any contact from the world outside your own has never been established. That doesn't mean that those who perish don't share the same hell with the rest of the planet. I never knew that. Thanks for telling me, he replied with a small smile, giving her a grateful bow. Oh. I never introduced myself. Sorry about that. Clearing his throat, he continued, I'm Naruto Uzumaki. It's nice meeting you, miss. At least he's polite, she mused. My name is Stella. I am part of the Ars Gosha family. Naruto gave her a kind smile before it turned to one of concern again. You seem a bit anxious about something, Gosha-san. Are you alright? She gave him a smirk at his question. A word of advice, Uzumaki, look out for yourself before concerning yourself over others. Here in hell, the people aren't afraid of taking advantage of others being needlessly compassionate. Noted, but you never answered my question. Well, isn't he a bold one, she thought, keeping her smirk. I was searching for my daughter. She's not used to social gatherings like this. I'd be happy to help you find her, he offered. I was told to socialize by Verosika, and I don't mind helping you. Verosika? You mean that succubus girl who promotes sexual acts? Yeah. She's my employer, currently. She offered me the option to come down here with her and her group, and I took it. You willingly came to hell? She asked with a raised brow. I know to many people it was probably a stupid idea. Incredibly so, she deadpanned. But I wasn't going anywhere back on Earth. I don't want to bother you with my troubles, so I'll just say that coming here was the best option for me and my future. Curious? Naruto perked up when he spotted someone and spoke, is that your daughter over there? Looking to where he was staring, she indeed noticed Octavia walking around awkwardly. In her dark violet dress, Stella had to mentally praise once again how lovely her daughter looked. Clearly, she got her mother's good looks. Over here, dear, she called out calmly, getting her daughter's attention and waving her over. Dear, this young man is Naruto Uzumaki. He's a human from the elemental nations, a subgroup of humanity that can use an energy called chakra. Octavia's eyes widened slightly at that, knowing that her mother was telling her that the human before her caused the energy wave that had a massive impact on her. She saw him give her a polite smile and bow. It's nice to meet you, he greeted. It's nice to meet you, too, she replied, slightly awkward. She'd never interacted with a human before, let alone someone with such powerful energy. Uzumaki, this is my daughter, Octavia, Stella introduced. She's a potential heiress of the Gosha. Sounds like you have a lot to live up to, he noted softly. If you don't mind some outsider advice. Intrigued, Octavia nodded her assent. Don't let the deeds of the people who came before you dictate how you should live. My father was hailed as a hero and a leader of my home village. I never knew him, and I was treated as a poor second coming of him. I decided to live as me, and not just as his son. Seeing the frown on his face as Naruto spoke of his father, Octavia wondered what happened to make him view the man so negatively. Still, she gave him a small smile and nodded her thanks for his advice, which she planned to take to heart. Thanks, I was wondering if I should be just another Gosha, but I don't want to change who I am for people I've never met. Exactly. Don't let them decide who you are, Octavia. You are you, and that's all you need to be. With his piece said, he bid the two women farewell and nodded to someone behind them before he walked off, leaving the mother-daughter duo seemingly alone to contemplate his words. He's right, my owlet, a familiar voice spoke up, prompting them to turn and see Stella standing behind them. An heiress you may become, but never let that change who you are. You're our daughter, and nothing will change that. Smiling, Octavia replied, thanks, Dad. He smiled back before turning to Stella. Interesting how an elemental came to hell. A powerful one at that, too. He's unconsciously emitting his energy, and it's rather potent. I doubt he's aware of that fact, Stella replied as she took another drink of wine. He may have too much chakra for his body to fully withhold. What's chakra? Octavia asked. The life energy unique to those from the elemental nations, dear. It is a mix of their physical and spiritual energies. Is it strong? That depends on the individual, Stolas answered. But based on what I can feel from him, I can safely say that his power could potentially match an overlord as is. Whoa, the youngest Gosha uttered in amazement. Chuckling, Stolas added, I doubt he'd go to the trouble of picking a fight. He's aware he's an outsider here, so I'm sure he won't want to make any waves. His phone buzzed in his pocket and he pulled it out to see he had a message from Blitzo. Taking a moment to look it over, he frowned at what he was reading before turning to his future ex and his daughter. I need to go. Something's come up. Will you be alright? Are you suggesting I can't look after our daughter, Stolas? Stella asked dangerously. Not wanting to cause a scene, the man replied, not at all. I merely wanted to know if you wished for me to take you both home at this time, or if you wished to stay. Octavia replied, I don't want to leave yet. I'll need to get used to parties like this, anyway. Smiling at her, Stolas gave Octavia a brief hug goodbye before sharing a civil nod with Stella. With that done, he vanished in a magic portal and departed. Taking another drink, Stella suggested, shall we go mingle, dear? Octavia nodded, but part of her was concerned when she saw Stella grab another goblet of wine from a passing imp carrying a trifle. She just hoped that her mother wouldn't overindulge. Charlie was despondent after receiving yet another rejection of support for the Happy Hotel. Vaggie tried to comfort her by patting her shoulder, and it was appreciated. But it was still hard to hear rejection after rejection. And while most were done politely, she could tell that they thought her goal was both a waste of time and foolish. She sighed at a table that she shared with Vaggie, sadly watching the guests mingle and enjoy themselves. Her parents were speaking with Lady Gremory, who did express interest in Charlie's idea but refused to help until Charlie presented some success. 2. Something she was determined to do but found increasingly difficult without aid. It'll be alright, Han, Vaggie consoled her, grabbing her hand in support. Even if no one here supports you, we'll make the hotel work. We'll do it together. Charlie smiled gratefully to her while wiping away a tear that almost fell. Thanks, Vaggie. Her girlfriend then perked up and muttered, incoming. Interested, Charlie turned around and saw Naruto approaching with a friendly smile. Hello again, Haim. Mind if I take a seat? It's really awkward walking around and pretending not to notice people staring. I'll bet, Vaggie commented while Charlie offered him a seat. Name's Bagatha. I'm Charlie's girlfriend and partner. Nice to meet you, he replied before asking, what sort of partner? Vaggie nudged Charlie and nodded her head to Naruto. Getting the message, Charlie explained, we run a hotel in the Pride Ring, the Happy Hotel. It's meant to be a rehabilitation center for sinner demons. Rehabilitation? You mean rehab for sin? He clarified. Exactly. But nobody wants to offer their support to us, Vaggie noted with a deep scowl. Worse than that, they ridicule us for trying to make a difference here in hell and help sinners get to heaven. Wait a minute, he spoke up before turning to Charlie. So you're the princess of hell, but your goal is to help demons go to heaven. Isn't that defeating the purpose of your role here? Charlie smiled and shook her head. You'd think so, but I'm doing this for my people. By helping them ascend to heaven, I not only give them a chance at peace, but I also am taking steps to stop the yearly purges here in hell. Fucking thing, so many lives wasted each year, Vaggie bit out angrily. Purges? Naruto repeated, sounding confused but also concerned. Does that mean? Both women nodded grimly at his query. Charlie elaborated, if you're thinking that demons are killed off in droves each year, then you're correct. She gained a look that showed how disgusted she was about the subject. It's horrid. Families here in hell can be torn apart at random, and it's because the population here is too great to manage. Fuck, the Uzumaki gasped out with wide eyes before looking sympathetic to their plight. I'm sorry, so many people who already have to suffer here just wiped out to deal with overpopulation, it sounds insane. Shaking his head, he gave Charlie and Vaggie a determined look before he asked, how can I help? His question caught them both by surprise. Do you want to help? Charlie asked in shock. Even though you don't need to do anything? Vaggie added, just as shocked. They saw him nod firmly. Absolutely. You're both doing something that has real meaning. I'll admit that I came here to hell with Verosika here because I felt like I wasn't going anywhere in my life. I want to be part of something worthwhile, you know. A goal that means something. He then smiled warmly at them, earning a faint blush from Hell's princess for both his praise and how his smile brought out his natural appeal. And I think your goal is definitely worthwhile. Let me help. Please. Charlie looked excited at his offer of support and turned to Vaggie to silently ask her opinion. The Salvadoran woman smiled at the excitement in her girlfriend's eyes and nodded her agreement. Charlie had a bright smile as she stood up, prompting Naruto to stand too. We would be so grateful to have you helping us, Naruto, she stated while holding out her hand. Here's to our future partnership. Naruto smiled back and grasped her hand, sharing a firm shake with her. Looking forward to it, Haim. You can just call me Charlie, you know. She suggested without dropping her smile. Got it, Charlie Haim, he fired back, his smile becoming a small grin that she giggled at. Vaggie smiled at seeing Charlie's spirits lifted by one person offering his support. She knew that her girlfriend needed it. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the servants called out, we present to you all the cake. Most of the guests complimented and praised the towering bakery dish, spotting the top that had 3 candles that spelled out 200 on them. While they were distracted by the marvel, Naruto noticed one of the servants pushing the cart holding the cake slip, making the delicacy go off balance and fly up into the air. Naruto groaned at this and flared his chakra, earning the attention of everyone before he vanished in a blur of motion that snagged the knife from the cart and expertly sliced the cake into dozens of pieces. The singular blur became multiple as Naruto created shadow clones to grab plates and catch the slices of cake before staging them all on the throng of tables where the guests were seated, serving them all before the original Naruto reappeared in front of Charlie with the final piece, the one holding the 3 candles atop it. "Happy birthday, Charlie Harem," he bid with a smile, offering her the cake slice. Amazed at what he pulled off, Charlie took the plate and set it down before applauding for him. This kickstarted the applause from the other guests, some of them even cheering for his actions. The praise made him smile at them all sheepishly and offer a bow to hide the awkwardness he felt. During it all, Verosika smirked as she uploaded the video of her ninja boy demonstrating his skills to the masses, posting it on her social media account while Vortex chuckled and shook his head. "Well, if nobody knew about a human here in hell, they sure will now, eh boss?" "Absolutely," she replied, her smirk widening at the surge of upvotes her video received within moments, as well as the picture she sneakily took of Naruto and Charlie shaking hands. "Looks like Ninja Boy's gonna be making quite the name for himself here in hell." But Stella and Octavia both were impressed by what they had witnessed. That, dear, is what chakra can do for someone's physical prowess, as well as one of the techniques it can be used for in those copies of his. Amazing, Octavia whispered before turning to her mother. "Can we invite him to the manor sometime? I want to learn more about his part of the world and about him too." "I suppose it can be arranged," Stella replied casually, hiding her own interest in the elemental. Young, handsome, and full of potential based on the raw amount of energy at his disposal, "I'll find out what makes you tick, Uzumaki." Lucifer hummed to himself as he observed the elemental boy conversing so amicably with his daughter after that admittedly impressive display. It wasn't the first time he had seen an elemental in action, having met a few that had become sinner demons and were stuck in the pride ring. One in particular, a Madara Uchiha, was an impressive specimen but entirely too prideful for his taste. Especially when he had the foolish notion of challenging him during a family outing to pride. Safe to say, the former Uchiha was no more after annoying Lucifer too much. "Seems like Charlie has made a new friend," Lilith spoke up with a smile to her husband. "Indeed. I'm curious about the young man. After all, it's not every day that a human, and an elemental at that, comes down to hell before they've died." Lilith gave him a slightly exasperated look. "You're going to speak with him privately, aren't you?" "Oh, calm down. I won't kill the young man. I just want to get my own personal impression of him. Can you blame me? Just be sure to hold back on your power, dear. Charlie seems quite taken with this one and I overheard him offering to help her with her hotel." "I make no promises," Lucifer replied with a smile as his eyes glowed. Meanwhile at Imp, Loona was browsing social media on her computer on one tab while the other had the broadcast for Princess Charlie's birthday. She was bored after killing off that mouthy brat who had the fucking nerve to say he was a cat person. She raised a brow when the camera spotted another human in hell, and the other brow rose to join the first when she saw he was accompanying the Verosika Mayday. Which was why she was browsing social media and Instagram. She paused when she saw earlier posts about the human, seeing pics of him hanging out with Verosika and her posse while sharing laughs with them all. Another picture had Verosika showing off her hair while posting that it was all thanks to her ninja boy's magic fingers. An innuendo for sure, but the results spoke for themselves with how much fuller her hair looked. "I wonder if he could do the same thing to my fur," she thought aloud in amusement, still scrolling through the other posts. She paused when she saw a picture of Ninja Boy shaking hands with Charlie herself and sharing a smile with Hell's Princess, interested in what the gesture could mean for the future. She then noticed a new post and clicked it, only to have her eyes go wide when she saw what Ninja Boy was capable of when he carved a large cake into perfect slices and presented the crowning piece to Charlie. Not bad, she mused, wondering in the back of her mind if this human was responsible for that energy wave a few days ago. What she knew for sure was that Hell was in for some interesting times with this new guy in town. Verosika, after uploading the pictures and video of her ninja boy, watched in amusement as Naruto turned positively red in embarrassment at the applauding guests. From this one moment of response to praise, she could tell that the Uzumaki was quite a stranger to positive reinforcement or even supportive words or actions. Part of her was pleased about this because it gave her a means of exploitation. But that was drowned by the larger part of her that felt sympathy for the whiskered blonde. To have grown up into his teenage years without much support must have been a struggle, and it only reinforced everything he told her during his first night in hell. Next to her, she could tell that Vortex also noticed this and was frowning faintly. It still amazed her how quickly Naruto had connected with and bonded with her posse, Tex especially. The two teased each other like they were brothers, and Tex imparted, so it didn't surprise her that Vortex was feeling some resentment for Naruto's home for how little they supported him as a person. Well, he's looking much better than he was back at your concert, Mayday, she heard a woman comment beside her, coupled with the scent of a certain alcohol she indulged in. Turning, she smirked at the speaker, a tall fox-like demon with insect-like features, multiple arms, a pair of antennae attached to her ears, and a small pair of insect wings and yellow and pink striped fur like a bee, alongside black markings that give a dripping appearance down her arms and legs. Her hair and tail appeared to be made of either honey or some sort of lava lamp fluid and glowed bright pink, blue, and orange, with her stomach also being akin to a lava lamp. She had a pink stripe on her head, and her outfit consisted of a pink sleeveless crop top with a heart-shaped cutout, white markings underneath turning into a paw with claws, and a white pair of short shorts. Well, if it isn't the HBIC of the gluttony ring, she replied. Was wondering if you'd show up or if you had another party going on back home. Smirking back was Beelzebub, otherwise known as Queen Bee. How are things going, Mayday? Noticed you picked up a stray, no offense, Vortex. Shrugging, the Hellhound replied, none taken. Things are going very well, actually, Verosika answered the voracious in. And I didn't so much pick up a stray as much as hired on a promising young man to act as my security. Is that so? Well, whatever you're doing, keep it up. That interested the sex idol. Oh. Not going to reprimand me for bringing a human to hell. After seeing what he was like at your concert. He needed someone to pick him up. Beelzebub looked at Naruto conversing with Charlie and Baggy, smiling faintly as Verosika and Vortex also watched. From what I could taste coming from him, he was in a bad place. I even offered him some booze and tried to get him to join me down on that beach, but he refused. You were there? Vortex asked curiously. She followed us to make sure we didn't go overboard in the elemental nations, Verosika informed him. I was told not to say anything about it, but if she's openly admitting it, then there's no need for staying quiet. I was in disguise, Beelzebub explained, briefly changing into a brunette human in a bikini before shifting back. He refused my offers of booze and company, saying that he wanted to be alone. He was dealing with some personal shit. I think I know what that personal shit was, Verosika noted with a small sigh. Still, I'm surprised you just let him be. I thought you were all for the parties. I enjoy giving people a fun time, getting them to let loose and have some fun. But I also know what it means to use fun as a crutch to run away from your problems. The fact that he rejected both showed me that he isn't the type to look for an easy out. I already had respect for him before his debut tonight. Raising a brow, Verosika asked, and after? He's a good man, and I say that in spite of him still being a teenager, she replied honestly. He knows what bothers him, and he doesn't take any easy roads to deal with it. Not to mention that he's engaging with our little princess over there with genuine interest and enthusiasm. Sounds like you like him. And you don't. Beelzebub calmly challenged with a knowing smile that made Verosika blush faintly. I can taste your feelings, Mayday. Don't forget that. What's your point? Verosika fired back a bit hotly. My point is that I'm glad you're finally moving on. I was just about to cut you off from my supply of Beelzebubs with how much of the shit you've ordered recently. She smiled genuinely at the succubus and finished with, it's nice to taste real interest and not just lust or desire, you know. Verosika blushed once more, while Vortex chuckled softly at his boss being called out so casually. Anyway, I think I'll go properly introduce myself to Hell's newcomer, Beelzebub bid before she left the succubus and Hellhound. Verosika sighed faintly. I hate being called out like that. Beelzebub does her own thing, boss. You know that, Tex reminded her. Besides, it's good to see that you're not denying what you're feeling for him. The others and I were starting to worry about you. Despite her annoyance, she couldn't help smiling at Vortex's words. Sorry about that. Anyway, what do you say about Ninja Boy's employment going from part-time to full-time? Giving a fanged smirk, he replied, I think that's a great idea. Could you tell me where you're from, Naruto? Charlie asked as she, Baggy, and the blonde Uzumaki sat at the table once more, partaking in the cake together. I'm from the elemental nations up top, he answered. It's a massive continent that is divided into a dozen or so different countries and is populated by humans who have chakra. And chakra is? Baggy asked curiously. In simple terms, it's a natural source of energy we have that mixes physical and spiritual energies in a balance. This energy is our life because we die if we use it all up. You use life energy to pull off some Mirta Loca like making copies of yourself or moving as fast as you did. Charlie giggled at his confusion and translated, she called your actions crazy bullshit. Oh. He realized before laughing at the eloquent phrasing. Yeah, we can use chakra to pull off some unreal feats. Breathing fire, controlling water from rivers and lakes, conjuring windstorms, harnessing lightning, and reshaping the earth, those are only a few things chakra can do. Amazing, Charlie whispered. You mentioned countries. Baggy asked. Yep. I'm from one of what is known as the Big Five countries, the lands of fire, water, wind, lightning, and earth, he answered. I was born in the Hidden Leaf village of the land of fire. Village? Charlie repeated. Hidden village, he clarified, but chuckled. Though, it's anything but hidden. We just call them hidden villages because they're surrounded by what they're named after, and also the hidden villages have military forces of shinobi. You're a soldier? But you're so young. Seeing her concern, Naruto tried to reassure her by answering, to join the shinobi corps of any nation is said to be both a huge honor and a big responsibility. We serve our villages and help to keep them safe and help them grow. See, but how old were you when you joined? Vaggie cut in with a narrowed look. That brought him short and he hesitantly replied, I joined when I was about 8 years old and we're graduated as rookie genin around the ages of 12. Child soldiers? Charlie gasped out, looking horrified at the notion. Is that the standard for your part of the world? There are some exceptions, specifically with prodigies who develop their chakra networks at earlier ages, or for those who need to start development at earlier ages, he explained. Chakra isn't just a life force for us elementals, Charlie. It's almost like a muscle that we need to develop and strengthen, and it's best if we're taught that from an early age. Some, like with any skill, excel from the start while others, like me, struggle with it at first. What do you mean by struggling? Vaggie asked curiously. My chakra network is oversaturated with energy. By the time I was 8, I had enough energy to match the level of your average jonin, which is the rank for the more experienced ninja. To clarify, genin are rookie ninja graduates, chunin is another way to say journeyman ninja, and jonin are the higher ranked ninja. There are other ranks, but they fall into more specialized categories. Charlie and Vaggie showed that they understood before Hell's Princess spoke up again. So you had too much energy to control before you even entered your village's academy. That explains you personally, but what about the average entry into the academy? 8 is the standard age. To be honest, I should have been enrolled a year or two earlier than average, but the Hokage, the Hidden Leaf's leader, wished for me to have a more normal childhood since my circumstances are more unique in the elemental nations. Which are? Personal, Naruto answered, and while he wasn't rude, he spoke firmly to get his point across. Charlie had a concerned look on her face, but she respected his desire for privacy and dropped the subject. Vaggie then asked, what happens after you graduate? Well, even after we graduate, most genin rarely see actual combat until a year or so. At most, we're usually stuck with D ranks, his brow twitched to their curiosity, and the occasional C rank. And those are? Missions, if you can call them that. D ranks are, to be blunt, chores meant to help promote genin working together to get a job done. They can be a variety of things like walking dogs, tending to gardens. They saw his brow twitch again. Hatching Tora fuck that cat, he grumbled before compassing himself again. Meanwhile, C ranks are more serious things like delivering important documents or supplies, helping patrol borders, or something like security detail for minor clients, he finished, failing to fully hide another twitch at that last example. Something happened on a security mission? Charlie questioned with a raised brow. Yeah, but I'll tell you about it another time. Looks like you're being called over by someone. Charlie and Vaggie looked to where he was gesturing, spotting Lilith casually waving them over, while Lucifer spoke with another guest. They sighed in tandem before getting up from their seats. Duty calls, Charlie quietly grumbled before she perked herself up and pulled out a business card. Here you go. Taking the offered card, Naruto read the front and saw that it was a card for the Happy Hotel, complete with a phone number and address. He smiled and pocketed the item before nodding to the two women. I'll be sure to come check the place out. Maybe I can get Verosika to pitch in, too. Charlie looked optimistic, while Vaggie was visibly unsure about the idea of a succubus offering her support to what was essentially a rehab center for sinner demons. Still, she said nothing and followed Charlie over to Hell's King and Queen. Naruto leaned back in his seat and observed the other guests, feeling a bit bored and out of place at the party without anyone to talk to. This event was for the noteworthy people of Hell, and he was just a human who happened to meet Verosika and interest her enough to bring him here. Part of him wondered if he rushed into this decision to come to Hell. He knew that, if he told anyone else what he had chosen, they would call him an idiot and question his sanity. Like Stella had said, it was an incredibly stupid decision to the average person. Naruto's circumstances were different. He honestly believed coming here with Verosika was his only option. He wasn't getting anywhere with Jiraiya and his so-called teaching methods. Naruto wouldn't have been surprised if the man simply wrote him off because he showed none of Minato's instinctive talent. And that made the young Uzumaki hate his father even more because his death left a lasting shadow from which he could never escape. He sympathized with Konohamaru more now, feeling a kinship with the boy because he was always seen as the grandson of Old Man Third. To the people who knew the truth and never bothered to tell Naruto, they probably only saw him as either the QB kid or Minato's failure of a son. It annoyed him because he now had two shadows he was trapped within, the shadow of his legendary father who was hailed as a hero, and the shadow of the monstrous QB who laid waste to the Hidden Leaf. Very few people would look at him and see just him, for he was always overshadowed by the legacies of others tied to him. Naruto wouldn't be surprised if his mother had a shadow he fell under, but he couldn't find himself to be as angry about it. After all, nobody ever referenced her during his academy days or when he was an active ninja. In fact, according to Pa, he had a whole clan that nobody bothered to talk about. It was always about the clans born in or part of the Hidden Leaf, never about a foreign clan. But the sigh, he was about to stand up when he heard a chair scrape the floor and saw that someone had joined him at the table. She looked like a fox-based demon, but with strangely fluid hair, forearms, and clothing similar to Verosika's. "Hey there," she greeted. For some odd reason, Naruto felt like he should know this woman, but he was drawing a blank. So instead, he smiled and replied, "Hello. I gotta say, Blondie, you're looking a lot better than the last time I saw you. We met before." "Yep. You probably wouldn't remember since I was in disguise when we talked." "Give me a sec," she requested before her appearance changed into that of a very familiar beachgoer Naruto spoke with during Verosika's concert. "Ringing any bells, Blondie?" Nodding he replied, "Yeah, I remember you. I didn't know other demons were visiting the elemental nations." Changing back, she replied, "Well, I was actually keeping an eye on a friend we both know. Verosika's concerts get pretty wild, huh?" "Wild isn't the word I'd use," he sheepishly replied with an awkward laugh, recalling the massive orgy that happened just after the woman across from him left him alone. "So, what's your name?" "I'm Naruto Uzumaki." "Beelzebub, the queen sin of gluttony here in hell," she greeted, reaching one of her hands across the table to shake his. "It's funny how life works, huh?" "Whatcha mean?" "Well, I just happened to meet you at Verosika's concert because I was able to taste how you weren't in the best mood." "You can taste emotions." Naruto cut in with interest. Unknown to him, the QB also cracked an eye open in curiosity. "That's right, and I was tasting some pretty bad vibes coming from you that day. That's why I offered you to join me down at the venue before you shot me down. I wasn't in a good place at the time," he tried to explain, even though he had explained himself to her when she was disguised. "Oh, trust me, I know. I also know that, well, you did try some of the booze I gave you dumped it not long after." "Spying on me?" he asked jokingly, earning a small laugh from her. "In a way. See, I'm a party girl. I love to throw big events to get people to let loose and have a fun time, get them to forget their troubles for a little while, you know." He nodded in understanding. "Problem is sometimes there are people who enjoy themselves a little bit too much and they end up depending on the partying and the drinking and the binging like a crutch. They don't have the balls to face what's troubling them and instead try to live in denial about everything. It's upsetting because by that point, you're not having fun, you're running away." Naruto hummed thoughtfully at that. "I might be running away, though." "How so?" she asked with a calm smile. "Because I literally came here to help because I was sick of everything that had happened to me and how I wasn't going anywhere with my life." "How's that not running away?" "Because you're not so dependent on being here that you can't function." "What does that mean?" "Take an alcoholic for example. To most of them, they believe that they can't face the world sober and depend on booze so much that they can't function without it. Now, I get that not all alcoholics are like that, but that's just an example for you." "I still don't think I get it," he replied honestly. "That's fine. Let me try it this way. You don't plan to stay here forever and never go back, right? No plans to abandon everyone you know and stay in this place of damnation for the rest of your life?" Naruto immediately shook his head negatively. "No, I don't. I still have promises back home I need to keep and I have a few people I could never leave without at least saying goodbye." "And that right there is why you're not running away from your problems. You're just taking a break from them and giving yourself time before you face them. Don't regret your choices, Blondie. If you did, would you have met Verosika or that hellhound of hers, Vortex?" "Probably not." "They're stronger than you think," she said emphatically. "You'll see." He slowly smiled at her, showing his gratitude for her words. "Thanks, Beelzebub." "Oh, call me B. Everyone else does," she replied with a wink. "Tuckling," he corrected, "thanks B." "No prob. Now, I better go. Looks like the big man himself wants to talk to ya," she bid, gesturing to Lucifer who looked to Naruto with a small smirk. "Any advice before I head up there?" Naruto asked, slightly nervous. "Don't leave your balls here at the table," she answered with a grin before floating away. "Gee, thanks," he muttered under his breath before getting up from his seat and heading over to the royal family of hell. Boss, the big boss is calling Naruto over," Vortex warned Verosika, who choked on her wine in shock. After coughing clear her lungs, she started freaking out. "Fucking shit. Please let Lucifer be in a good mood or I'm so royally fucked." Not to be that guy. Oh, you are definitely being that guy right now. But I did say to be ready for the backlash, Tex finished. Take a chill pill, girl, Beelzebub said as she floated back over to the duo after her chat with Naruto. You may not believe me, but Lucy's a chill guy. I still can't believe you call him that, Verosika deadpanned. He's like a brother to me, you know. Anyway, Blondie will be fine. You'll see. The sex idol didn't share the party demon's blasé attitude, and it wasn't because she lacked faith in her ninja boy. It's because he's her ninja boy that she was worried. Would Lucifer kick him out of hell, kill him on the spot, or do something else? Naruto, she thought in worry. Mom, Octavia spoke up, interrupting her mother's 7th glass of wine. Naruto is being called up by Lord Lucifer. Stella paused with the rim of her goblet near her beak, lowering it away from her face to turn her attention to where the royal family was standing. This could be either a good thing, or it could end badly. What do you mean? Uzumaki wasn't brought here to hell properly, dear. He joined a succubus demon who brought him here, something that is against the laws of hell. Octavia looked worried at that. Will he be okay? I don't know, dear, Stella answered with a small frown. We just need to see what will happen. The young Gosha listened to her mother's words, watching the blonde human approaching the royal family while growing more worried. Here he is, the young elemental. Lucifer announced as Naruto approached. How are you finding your time with the damned, my boy? Naruto scratched his whiskered cheek for a moment. It's different, but not so bad. Oh? Give it time, kid. You humans and your morality can never get along with the demons and sinners of hell, unless you fuck up in life, of course. Naruto noted that Charlie looked ashamed at her father's words, and he frowned faintly. I doubt that. I'm getting along pretty well with Verosika and her group, and I'd like to think Charlie, Haim and I are friends. Charlie looked slightly surprised for a moment before smiling at him while Lucifer snorted. There's always the occasional odd egg. So, the question that needs to be asked. Why are you, a human, here in hell? Needed some time to get my head on straight after learning about some bullshit back up top. I was offered a job in the meantime, and I took it. That a problem? He challenged, earning stunned looks from the guests of Charlie's birthday. Verosika tensed up at his challenging tone. Ninja boy, shut up. The boys got quite the set on him, Stella thought with amusement, slowly growing more aroused at the boldness the elemental was showing. He's standing up to Lord Lucifer. Octavia mentally freaked out. Beelzebub smirked and thought, interesting. Lucifer chuckled at Naruto's tone. A problem? No, not at all. He answered, before taking a moment to pause. Well, not one for you, anyway. For your employer, though. Hearing the man in charge trail off made Naruto and Verosika tense, and the Uzumaki reflexively primed his chakra, unconsciously creating a slightly weighted feeling in the air. You planning on punishing her for bringing me here? She broke the law, kid, Lucifer fired back calmly, priming his own demonic power in response to Naruto's. Here in hell, I make the laws, so I enforce them when they're so blatantly broken. Yeah? Naruto almost growled out, raising his chakra output enough to outline his form in blue energy. Pretty ironic that the place people go to for breaking laws and being evil in life need to follow the laws of the so-called king of hell. Rules and consequences, my boy, Lucifer replied, outlining himself in a pitch-black aura as everyone at the gala has some difficulty breathing and standing up straight. Without them, we live with the animals and are left with primal instinct. You'd be surprised how that primal instinct comes out even with rules. Besides, I thought the demons here in hell thrived on those instincts. You have a lot of opinions for a place you've lived in for, what, a week? Maybe you need an outside perspective or someone who thinks outside the norm like Charlie Haim. The Uzumaki challenged. Sure, her goal is mocked by most of the people here, but she's trying to do something with this place and not just bow down to the status quo. Lucifer finally lost his smirk, his aura spiking and betraying how Naruto's comment got to him. You think I'm bowing down, do you? Shrugging mockingly, Naruto smirked this time as his chakra output spiked to match his aura. You tell me. Charlie Haim told me about the yearly purges in hell, and while you do nothing about it, she's taking steps to change things despite facing ridicule and mockery. She's not bowing down. Cheeky little shit, aren't you? He challenged the whiskered teen as his features started morphing into a more demonic form and his aura started flooding off his body. I've been known to thumb my nose at people of authority, Naruto fired back, surging his chakra and surrounding his body in flickering flame-like energy. Charlie and Vaggie were left stunned at what was happening, amazed at what Naruto was doing in front of so many people. Lilith could only sigh at her husband's actions, though she was impressed with the human standing up to him and boldly showing so much support for her daughter and her goals with that hotel of hers. Perhaps he could be exactly what Charlie needs to garner support, she mused. She wanted to believe in Charlie's dreams of helping sinner demons rehabilitate and earn the right to go to heaven, but the odds were so stacked against Charlie that Lilith was worried she'd only fight a losing battle and get hurt. With Naruto so vocally throwing his support and calling out her husband on his hands-off attitude regarding the purges, a small bit of hope was starting to spark within her. But Stella and Octavia, both had been heavily affected by the clashing power flex between Lucifer and Naruto. So much so that their conscious thoughts took a dip into the realm of fantasy. "Oh, fuck." Stella cried out in her fantasy, her back pressed to the wall of her bedchamber as her body was racked with pleasure. The source of said pleasure was a certain blonde human thrusting into her, well outlined in that orgasmic chakra of his, pounding away inside of her while holding her up by her waist. "You like that?" Fantasy Naruto asked her as kept thrusting. Yes. Don't stop. Don't you fucking stop." Her fantasy self demanded as she rode the waves of ecstasy. "Fuck, Stolas can't even compare to you, you goddamn animal." Sadly for the Gosha woman, her fantasy faded away just before she could reach release. Octavia's fantasy was far tamer than her mother's, but it still involved the blonde elemental. Her back was pressed to the wall as he slammed a palm next to her head, and she looked up to see his blue eyes, those gorgeous blue orbs staring at her with open desire and a confident smirk. "Remember, via fantasy," Naruto spoke almost sensually, "don't let anyone decide for you. What do you want to do?" He leaned in as he asked her, and she was lost in his eyes for a moment before her thoughts turned a bit naughty. Blushing, she reached up and briefly stroked his cheek before kneeling down, so she was level with his waist. Her hands reached for his belt, but she hesitated. "It's your decision, Via," he reminded her fantasy self, spurring her on. She grasped the buckle of his belt, anxiously freeing it as she unbuttoned and unzipped his pants to reveal. Octavia flinched at the sound of shattering glass, blinking her hazy vision away as fantasy gave way back to reality. Wondering what had happened, she looked around only to see that her mother had dropped her glass, which had broken the spell Naruto's chakra had unconsciously put over her. And while Octavia was blushing in embarrassment about her thoughts, Stella's face was full of arousal, and she sensually licked her beak in anticipation. Looking at the human in a new light, her eyes gleamed with desire and raw lust. "Oh, yes, that boy will be mine," she mentally promised. Beelzebub was impressed with Naruto's power flex against Lucifer and how their energies were still surging without signs of stopping. And to think, Naruto only called upon his power after Lucy threatened punishment upon Mayday. Damn, Blondie looked tough already, but fuck, he's got some serious fucking balls to stare down Lucy like that. And what a sweetheart too, doing it all to protect Verosika. I swear, that girl found herself a good one, she thought before an idea sprung into her mind. Looking to the absolutely shocked Verosika while also tasting the building lust and desire coming off of her, Bee leaned over so that she could speak directly into her ear. "Better snag and bag him while you can, Mayday," she warned teasingly. "Because if you don't fuck him," she leaned even closer to practically breathe into her ear, "then maybe I'll take him for a wild ride." That snapped Verosika out of her shock, and she turned to the queen of gluttony with demonic eyes, and her spaded tail coiled angrily. "Not a chance, bitch," she growled back, sounding possessive. "Naruto's my ninja boy, and if I ever plan to share him, it'll be after I give him the ride of his fucking life." Beelzebub simply smiled confidently and floated off while bidding, "Better do it soon." Then as she left, she conjured up some mouthwash and gargled it before spitting it into an empty wineglass. "Ugh, the overabundance of lust in here tastes like piss." She took a brief moment to look toward the Gosha duo, smirking with interest. Although Verosika scoffed at the parting shot and the extra commentary despite part of her agreeing that she needed to act fast. After all, with her ninja boy's power flex against Lucifer, all the thirsty sluts of hell will be after his beep. And while she also wanted his beep, she mainly wanted his heart. Lucifer had to admit, if only to himself, that he was genuinely impressed with the blonde Uzumaki's ability to match him so well in raw energy output. Oh, he knew exactly who this young man was, sensing the secondary energy source within him that was full of wrath and pride, nothing that the Uzumaki himself had within him. To be fair, there was wrath in the Uzumaki, along with some envy, but they weren't nearly as high as, surprisingly, his gluttony. It was a curious thing, sensing something other than wrath or envy within a Jinchuriki. "1. You know, kid," he began, easing up on his aura and smiling calmly, "you're not bad. Definitely more interesting than the average human, for sure." Naruto, however, didn't back off on his chakra output and kept a narrowed gaze on the king of hell, making the man roll his eyes. "Oh, calm down already. I'm not going to punish anyone, so you don't need to worry about that little succubus of yours." Naruto's eyes narrowed a bit more as he replied, "Do I have your word?" "Persistent little punk," Lucifer fired back in amusement. "You Uzumaki were always a stubborn lot and crazy as shit too." He chuckled in recollection before offering his hand to the whiskered blonde. "I give my word so long as you don't cause trouble here, of course." Naruto stared at the hand for a moment before slowly restraining his chakra so that it was calm again. He then reached out to shake the fallen angel's hand, finding himself pulled forward so that the man could speak into his ear. "I mean it, kid. I know how destructive you Uzumaki can get, not to mention being a Jinchuriki on top of that. Behave yourself, or else." "Still trying to enforce rules, huh?" Naruto challenged calmly. "Fuck the rules." Pulling away, Lucifer genuinely laughed at that last shot, impressed with the set of balls the Uzumaki team had on him. "You know, I think you'll fit in just fine here, kid. Enjoy the hospitalities hell has to offer, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you can do for my daughter's little project of hers." Charlie and Baggy sighed in relief before they gave Naruto grateful looks, Charlie even mouthing a heartfelt thank you to her fellow blonde. He also caught a small smile from Lilith, and he gave both members of the royal family a smile in response before he walked off and returned to Verosika. He saw Beelzebub heading his way, and she had an amused look on her face. "Making waves, eh, Blondie? I'm just looking after my friends. If I can, I will. I've always been that way." Her amusement softened to a smile. "I can tell. Hey, if you ever want to take a load off and enjoy a party," she offered him her own card, "hit me up." Taking the card, he chuckled and replied, "You told me to hit you up back at the beach, you know." "Well," she dragged out with a wink, "you interest me, Uzumaki. Anyway, I wanted to have a chat with Lucy." Then, in a very bold move, she reached out with one of her lower arms and grabbed Naruto's crotch while discreetly winking at a fuming Verosika, making Naruto yelp in surprise and turn tomato red. She also enjoyed the taste of jealousy that was especially strong from the succubus and the Gosha duo. "I'll see you later," she bid before floating off while Naruto awkwardly returned to Verosika. "Enjoy yourself, ninja boy." "I'm not sure I'll get used to these bigwig events," he sheepishly answered, still thrown off by the blatant groping of his crotch. She rolled her eyes but smiled at him. "Ready to go?" "Yeah, I think I've had enough fun tonight." "Is that what you call having a beat measuring contest with the big boss of hell?" Vortex asked with a raised brow as the trio made their way out of the gala. Snorting, Naruto joked, "Not so big compared to other people, especially his wife." Despite himself, the Hellhound couldn't help laughing at Naruto's comment. He wasn't wrong, at least. Lucifer was quite shorter than Lilith, after all. Heading in the limo with Verosika while Tex got behind the wheel, Naruto relaxed in his seat beside the succubus. "I've never been to something like this before. It was kinda fun." Smirking, she had her tail reach over to stroke his cheek, getting his attention. "You really made a splash tonight, ninja boy. It'll be interesting seeing the waves that splash made." "Ah, I'm not worried about that. Besides, I only stood up to Lucifer because he threatened to punish you for breaking the law. As if a place like hell would really crack down on people breaking the rules." Her cheeks flushed at Naruto admitting he was defending her, and her heart slowly started to race. "You did all that for me?" "You bet," he answered easily. "I'll do anything to look after my friends." Spurred by her growing arousal, she slid over to him so that she could straddle his lap, smirking as he blushed once again. "Oh? Am I just a friend, ninja boy?" Swallowing the lump in his throat, Naruto averted his gaze and awkwardly replied, "I mean, I'd like to think you're my friend, V." Upping his cheek, she had him look her in the eyes again as she leaned her face dangerously close to his own. "See, I have a small problem with that." "You do?" "You see, I'm not sure how I feel about being regulated to the friend zone. It feels too restrictive." "What does that even mean?" he started to ask before he was cut off by her leaning in and kissing him, making his cheeks burn while his eyes went wide in shock. Sure, she had kissed him on his first night in hell, but he thought it was simply because their emotions were running high and that the alcohol was lowering their inhibitions. But now, neither of them really drank at the party and things were pretty calm in the limo before Verosika started kissing him. What did this mean? He couldn't think straight, surrendering to the taste of her lips on his own while holding her close, much to her delight. They lost track of time, making out and caressing one another in the limo, before they had to stop when they felt the vehicle slow to a stop outside the apartment complex. Pulling back, Verosika smiled gently at her ninja boy's flushed face. "Come to my room in a bit, Naruto," she requested as she got off of him and exited the limo. Naruto needed a moment to recompose himself and go over what Verosika had asked of him. Despite being dense as a brick when it came to women, he did travel with an irredeemable pervert for a while, long enough to see something like this happen once or twice with a toad sage. His mouth went dry at the implications of Verosika's request. Was he ready for something like this? Was this just the implication for sex or did it mean something more? These questions kept echoing in his mind as he went to his apartment room and got out of his tuxedo for more casual clothes. Sitting on his couch, he waited for a little while, his mind not sure of how long time had passed. Deciding to take the plunge, he stood up and left his room, standing just outside Verosika's. Swallowing thickly, he nervously raised his hand and knocked, only to have the door open immediately and reveal Verosika in a casual nightdress as she smiled at him. "About time," she greeted teasingly, gently grabbing his hand and pulling him into her room, using her tail to close the door. She then led the nervous teen to her room, letting him inside first so that she could also close her bedroom door. "Listen, V," he tried to say, his nerves getting the best of him as she turned to face him with a patient expression. I'm not sure what you want to do, but I've never I mean." Her soft laughter stopped him short and he blushed both in embarrassment and at how beautiful she sounded. "You're so tense. Relax, ninja boy. Listen, I want you to take a deep breath, okay? Breathe in." At her gentle instruction, he took in a deep inhale. "And out." He complied, exhaling the tension in his body and feeling much more relaxed as the two shared a smile. "Better?" "Yeah," he admitted, prompting her smile to grow into a smirk. "Good." Lying on her bed, Naruto was out like a light with an arm instinctively wrapped around her waist as she cuddled him. Slowly being lulled to sleep by his heartbeat, Verosika's eyes fluttered closed and she felt the last of whatever feelings lingered on Blitzo fade away. She thought it was love when she was with that horse-obsessed imp, but those feelings were nothing compared to what she felt for the human she had ridden for the last couple of days. His stamina was unreal and she almost barely lost a war of attrition to him, but experience won the war for her. An exhausted giggle escaped her as she finally succumbed to sleep, enjoying the closeness she had with someone she loved. She would tell him how she felt after they rested. For now, she was content to just sleep beside him, wrapped in his arm and soothed by his heartbeat. So this part ends here. Alright, that's it for today's video guys, let me know in the comments section how was the story and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video, bye bye.